All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, all. It is our Thursday show. Welcome to everyone. Yeah, damn straight. We're excited. In fact, Albert is here, the commissioner you were asked about in an email. I will ask you to respond to the email in mere moments. Kim is here.
Kim, how are you?
And Kim is, in addition to doing the news updates and keeping us posted on so much going on around the world, Bay Area, California, U.S., Kim is very, she's instrumental in organizing the show in a lot of ways. So just want you to be aware of the fact she's kind of stepped up on this new platform that we're on.
She wears many hats.
She wears many hats, exactly right.
Kim, how are you?
Mom organizing the Mark Thompson show camping trip, you know?
Yeah, that's it.
Got to make sure we have all the stuff for s'mores.
David Katz with us today, and boy, what a day with the law. I don't know if you watched anything from the Georgia courtroom where this Fonnie Willis boyfriend thing is going down. But I think there is a legit issue here, but is it enough to derail the entire trial? That probably the answer is no. Still, David Katz will weigh in on what will likely be, I think, a narrative that will include sidelining the trial or delaying the trial. This is the trial of Donald Trump and his associates involved in undermining the Georgia election count. You know, the 11,780, that part. David will be here second hour. Also in the second hour, it's the Planet Stupid. Belinda Waymouth joins with issues involving the planet. Happy birthday and shout out already in the chat to Miz Organic.
Big shout out.
Yeah. Big birthday shout out from Luis. He includes with his shout out $5.
Why are you yelling?
Because I'm excited. Happy birthday shout out to Miz Organic. Have a huge soda day. And if you've missed it, huge soda is the new way we refer to people who are a big deal.
Oh, that guy was such a huge soda.
Yeah, that guy was such a huge soda.
Oh, that guy was such a huge soda.
Exactly. 50th birthday, Miz Organic. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
So much to live for. Wow, 50th birthday. 50 is the new 40, right?
Totally.
50 is no big deal.
No.
50 does feel big, though, right? 50 is a big number.
It feels like you cross the threshold and everything that lays ahead is old age. But I will say...
What? Who is having that conversation?
Nobody at the birthday party, I'll tell you that. You will not hear that toast at the birthday party. Well,
wait,
Ms. Organic, congratulations. 50 is one of those ages that, well, everything after this is old age. Wow.
That's not what I mean to say. Rewind.
Yeah. I think
50 is still so young and vibrant.
Yeah, what would you like to actually say, Kim?
Let's enjoy our good health.
For what you've done?
First, would you like to apologize? Which apology would you like?
Absolutely. My incredibly bad and my deeply sorry.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Okay. So what you did upset a lot of people with those words because there are many 50-year-olds.
My words upset so many people.
What would you like to say, Kim, to Miz Organic and all the 50-year-olds?
It's better than the alternative, is what I'd like to say.
Thank you so much.
That is your correction
What?
on the original statement?
That's my correction and apology. Embrace it because it's better than death. Absolutely.
I am...
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
That's what you should have said. Oh, my gosh. Well, I'm excited, Ms. Organic. I think, here's what I love about 50. You're smart. You've lived a bunch. You're not going to make a lot of the problems happen in your life when you're in your 40s. You're still making a lot of those problems. You know, like misspeaking on Mark's podcast about somebody's 50th birthday. You wouldn't make a mistake like that because you're 50 and you know better. But the other thing is, you're still young enough to enjoy your life. It's a vibrant period in your life, the 50s. And even if you've let yourself go and you've made it to 50, there's still enough time to get it together, get yourself in shape, and enjoy a great, great life. So I wish you a very happy birthday. Wait till you look back fondly on 50, said somebody. Happiest birthday, Ms. O, says Maud. Yeah, very exciting. Kelly Malloy with a big shout out and a happy birthday to Miz Organic.
Big shout out.
Yeah,
happy
really
birthday.
special. Deborah B with a $10 super sticker. You were crowdfunded, so we like to give big shout outs to those who hit us with super stickers and super chats. We've got a great show ahead. And I did get some, as long as you're not 5150, says Mo. Yeah, the 5150 you don't want. Well, we've got serious stuff. We've got some lighter stuff. I've got some law and disorder. Also have the stories from the sky from yesterday that was so overwhelming and what am I trying to say, Albert? It was so juicy that we held it over from yesterday to today.
Yeah, we preserved it. We almost did a couple of them, but we needed to keep it all together.
Yeah.
Ms. Organic says, I am definitely a bit 5150.
What?
Wow.
So she's a fun 50. Awesome.
Yeah, you want a dash of 5150. You just don't want to get you don't want to oversteer.
No.
Very fun. But it's great to have everybody here, and let's get going.
The Mark Thompson Show.
By the way, the mailbag, if I can use that dated term, the mailbag overflows. It really does. I don't know that I'll get to all of it.
And we got some photos too, right?
Yeah, we got photos.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
What do I have? Those photos are from...
I do have ones from Ray, an email from Ray with a couple
let me
photos.
see if I can just find it. Okay. Ray, yes, some photos that we may have missed. I think he's right. We did miss them, or I missed them the first time. Resending these photos, he says, because he is, as I recall from this email, I read it earlier, I think he's in Portugal. Is that possible? Resending these photos because I'm not sure you actually were able to see them when I originally sent them. Thank you for all you do. I'm kind of summarizing it. It's a really great email, kind of substantial email. And he says, first, thank you for all that you do.
Look at that.
We've been following you since KGO. We started at a radio station called KGO. That's what he's talking about. The day that they dropped your show, they dropped the whole station. They didn't just drop our show. Our show was crushing it, my friends. But then they dropped everything. But it was like an early Christmas gift when we found out that you'd found a new way to bring your show back to us on YouTube. So there is our, from our merch store, our Mark Thompson Show mug sitting on a beach in Portugal.
Good day, sir.
Yeah. They're
Good day, sir.
I have to let you know, during the pandemic, especially that first 3-month shutdown, you and your team not only kept us informed with crucial information, but also kept us smiling with stories that were humorous and entertaining. Thank you. So this is a picture, as we said, from our second home in Portugal, he says. We decided to take it to this Obidos Lagoon, which is about a 10-minute walk from our home in Foz do Aurelho. Is that, I don't speak Portuguese. So
beautiful, though. Wow.
If I can make a future vacation suggestion, if you've never been to Portugal, it's a beautiful country with wonderful, kind people. The food is great, vegan options. Weather is a lot like California. Affordable to visit, cost-effective Airbnbs, and you can even get a cruise on the Douro River. They would love you, Mark. One more thing, we do listen to your show over there when we're at home or driving around.
Awesome.
Thank you again to you and your team. In closing, to quote the great Dick Vitale, you are worldwide, baby. Devoted listeners, Ray and Janice from Petaluma. Bravo.
Oh, wonderful.
Albert, you see the other side of it? Good day, sir.
Good day, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's what Kim was talking about. Yeah. That's a really cool email. Thank you. Our email is themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. The other, I got a bunch in. The other email was from somebody who just hit Tuda Vineyard yesterday, I think. Steve and Lori. Did I send that to you, Albert, or not?
Yeah, I have that one too. Let me
Okay.
just get
From Steve and Lori. Hey, Mark, I just want to let you know that my wife and I, Steve and Lori is who we are, we're at Tuda Vineyards today. Oh, that's cool.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
Yes, this is one of them.
that.
Rich mentioned that I should reach out to you and say hi. Rich is in the center there. Rich is just coming out of back surgery, I think.
Yeah.
I really love the wine selections that you recommend. We bought 4 bottles. Here are some pictures of us with Rich. Thanks again for the recommendation, Steve and Lori. And you
So
see the Friends
great.
for Life
Yeah.
banner behind them. Very cool. Glad you had fun there.
That's
it's
awesome.
a great spot, and
Yeah.
really love the varietals. And they've been with the show since we moved over to YouTube, which is really cool because we need sponsorships along with the essentially crowdfunding that goes on to keep the show going. So thanks to all of you who get in touch with us, send us pieces, articles, and we'll get into some more emails if there's time later today, but definitely tomorrow. Really, really cool to hear from everybody, though.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, it's not at all surprising, sadly, that when you get a group of people together in America, somebody opens fire. You know, I call it the United States of guns. In fact, in dark humor, I joked on Monday when there was a picture of Travis Kelce hugging and kissing Taylor Swift. I said, well, there it is. I mean, that's the most American thing. Super Bowl, NFL, star, hugging Taylor Swift, huge recording star. The only thing that would make it more American is if she were hugging him with an assault rifle. Here they are, next couple of days, putting the parade together for the Chiefs. Everybody's there to celebrate, and what happens? Someone opens fire. Albert, run a little bit of the piece, if you will. This will give you a sense of what it was like.
It was nearing the end of the Chiefs' victory parade. Hundreds of thousands had gathered in downtown Kansas City to cheer on the team, when suddenly phones capture the gunshots in the crowd just outside of Union Station.
And we just heard this big, loud bang, and everyone was just told to get down on the ground and get close. So I grabbed my son and we got close to the fence.
Police swarmed the area near the old train station, taking 2 men into custody, while this video shows spectators tackling a third man as he tries to get away through the crowd. Paul Contreras was one of those good Samaritans.
I heard somebody yelling to stop this guy, tackle him. He got close to me. I got the right angle on him, and I hit him from behind. And when I hit him from behind, I either jarred the gun out of his hand or out of his sleeve.
Sadly, one person was killed during the shooting. She's been identified as Lisa Lopez Galvan, a mother of 2. Her son was also hurt but is okay. 2 of her nieces are still hospitalized. And they are just some of the 24 others wounded or hurt during this gunfire, many of them children.
We have had 12 patients that we have treated, 11 of which are children with 9 gunshot wounds. None of those patients, all of those patients we expect to have a full recovery.
At least 2 adults, though, remain in critical condition tonight. And while no motive for the shooting has been announced, it may be the result of a dispute between armed attendees in the huge crowd. KC's mayor saying what many Americans are feeling tonight.
Parades, rallies, schools, movies. It seems like almost nothing is safe.
And Mayor Lucas says that 800 uniformed police officers were there at that celebration today, but that just didn't deter at least one shooter from opening fire.
Yeah, what is missing from that report, it was a great report, it gave you a sense of what happened, is some context. Context that's associated with gun laws, right? The fact is that Missouri's gun laws just are almost non-existent. And so that's how you end up with everybody having a gun. You can't get together that many people in one place and not expect that there are a ton of people who are armed. And so one of the most disturbing comments I heard was from a mother. She was with her daughter, as I recall, and she said this. She said, well, and she said it so nonchalantly. She said it, well, you know, you get this many people together, you got to figure that there might be a shooting. And then,
No.
I mean, that was it. It wasn't like...
It's not acceptable.
It wasn't
that's
said
not
in an
normal.
alarming way.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
At what point do we just start going, oh, okay, well, this is normal, so got to expect it. You know, look at all these people.
It was the 16th anniversary of the mass shooting at Northern Illinois University. It was the 6th anniversary of the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. It's just, on Valentine's Day, America's love affair with guns. And you know what? The reality is that Americans don't have the love affair with, no questions asked, gun ownership. Americans want questions asked. Americans want background checks. Americans want a real registry of gun owners. But politicians who purport to represent those Americans, they're the ones in bed with some cultural devotion to this machismo, maybe with guns, and, of course, with the gun lobby, which does shower a lot of these politicians. Josh Hawley among them. He's a senator from Missouri with campaign cash. Look, it's the same speech, making it day after day. Just happens to be a little higher profile because it happened at this Kansas City Chiefs parade. But just brutal. Absolutely brutal.
What I hear from that mother's statement is that we're going from outrage to now acceptance.
I think that's a good way to
I have a big problem with that. I have a big problem with acceptance. I mean, if the minute we start accepting this as just the way it is in America, is the moment that any possibility of change goes out the window. I mean, we have to at least try to fight to make things normal so that we can go to the movies or to our places of worship if we have one, or wherever it may be, and not worry that someone's going to open fire. This is not normal. Outrage should stay.
In August, Missouri Governor Mike Parson chastised the mayors of Kansas City and St. Louis, the state's largest cities, for proposing 2 new gun safety laws. The first would prohibit the purchase of bullets by those who are 18 and younger without parental consent. And the second proposed law would have banned switches. They convert pistols into fully automatic handguns. They can empty an entire magazine with one pull of the trigger. Okay, so there were laws that were being proposed to stop that. That's the kind of weapon that could easily be concealed in a large crowd, a weapon that had been switched, in effect, that converted. It's a pistol, converts to an automatic weapon. So you can just put it in your, it's easy to hide. But the legislature didn't follow through. And it's worse than that. There was an effort to bar the cops from enforcing gun laws in Missouri. The U.S. Supreme Court had to step in and say it was unconstitutional to bar the police from being able to enforce the gun laws there. When you look at weak gun laws and murder rates in states, there's a direct correlation. I mean, this is like climate change to me. It's the correlative is so strong. You don't. But we sit here and we pretend. Well, it's a mental health thing. I get it. Mental health enters into all of these things, acts of violence and acts of carnage of this sort. But when guns are everywhere, those people who are having a mental health break, they grab a gun. it's depressing. And as Kim says, the fact that there's a nonchalance about it now, and the fact that we just understand that's the danger baked into America, it's despicable. William Lundgren, how can you effectively counter millions and millions of guns circulating in the U.S.? Well, you effectively counter it with gun laws. That's how. I mean, small e on effective. I don't think you're effectively countering it, but you're doing something. This is third world stuff, not USA. What the hell? Never ending, says Julie. So the fact that you have about 43,000 Americans died by the bullet in 2023, says B.A. Ware. 37,000 from COVID perspective. Yeah, right. I mean, so people dying at the hands of a gun outpaced COVID deaths. Didn't know that. Thank you for that. Sadly, this doesn't surprise anyone, says Mario. This is the new normal in the United States. Politicians prefer the money that the NRA gives them. Yeah, and there's another point, and that is that the NRA doesn't even have much money anymore. That's why I was making the point about the cultural machismo or the cultural notion that guns are Americana. You have legislators wearing those assault rifle pins on their lapels. I mean, that isn't just for money. That's for those who are so wedded to this extreme interpretation of the Second Amendment that they're currying favor with them. They're currying favor with that electorate. The lady Beatrice says, this is a super chat. Thank you for that. We want background checks. I would like mandatory mental health evaluations. I feel like the people in charge stand to benefit from the NRA, so they do crap to protect the rest of us. They do crap to protect the rest of us. I get it. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Yeah, in other words, they don't do They don't do crap to protect us. You're right, of course. But as I say, they're beholden both to the NRA money or to lobby money associated with the gun lobby. And also to, I'd suggest, and this is more disturbing to me, the cultural cornerstone that's associated with gun ownership. And again, I personally have no problem with you owning a gun. I just want it in your house. I don't want you to leave the house with it. Now, you may be, Mark, I'm a responsible gun owner. I get it. We can have that whole conversation. But I just am saying, in terms of my kids' safety, I don't want them to go to Disneyland, to parades, to celebrations, to concerts, to movies, to shopping malls, and have to worry about everybody being strapped or whatever the hell the jargon is for people having guns. The lady Beatrice says, we need mental health checks. It's not enough for someone to have a clear record, nor should it be. Yeah, you can have the background checks and you have a clear record, and obviously you can still come unglued. But give me churches, synagogues, parades, schools with no guns. You've got 6-year-olds coming in with dad's gun. I mean, come on, man. This country has lost its way on guns. But you know what? We're going to have the same conversation again soon. Sad.
The Mark Thompson Show.
By the way, an Ontario teen, Ontario is just outside of Los Angeles, he was just picked up with every intention, cops say, of carrying out a school shooting. This just happened. Ontario Christian High School. It's a private high school. He had several weapons and over 1,000 rounds of ammunition in his house.
Wow.
Again, Christian, private. Another student blew the whistle. He had 11 weapons in his house, this kid. 7 rifles, 1 shotgun. And apparently he'd mapped out the school so that he could pursue a violent, essentially, it's a massacre of everybody he could get a hold of. Crazy. They shut down a city council meeting. Check this out.
The Mark Thompson Show.
They shut down a city council meeting in Orange County because of racial, anti-Semitic, and homophobic slurs. It was a Zoom bomb, I guess, that had all these racial, anti-Semitic, and homophobic slurs in Orange County. They literally had to close down the meeting. Would you be up for the banning of disposable cups at restaurants?
Yeah.
Senate Bill 1167 here in California would require chain restaurants to provide dine-in customers with non-toxic reusable cups instead of those single-use plastic or paper cups that end up in landfills.
So this isn't affecting people like that go through the drive-through, whatever. This is dine-in.
Well, it's interesting. They are talking about including a different kind of material for the drive-through, I think, as well. Although it looks like 1167, which is the Senate bill, may at least initially not include the takeout. These cups are part of the more than 500,000 tons of plastic waste produced for food service alone. Although single-use drinkware is often marked as recyclable or compostable, cups often end up in the landfill or the environment, along with lids, stirrers, drink stoppers, drink sleeves. This is a quote, of course. Even paper cups are usually lined with polyethylene plastic, making them difficult to recycle. Single-use cups are among the top items found polluting coastlines. Also in communities across California and national parks in California as well. Once in the environment, plastic and foam cups break up into micro and nanoplastics, posing a threat to the environment and to human health.
No, thank you.
This is also being done by a legislator who is a proponent of the plastic bag ban. So, Senator Catherine Blakespear from Encinitas. She's a Democrat. We'll see. Senate Bill 1167. Pretty big.
We have to do something differently. You know, what we're
Is that
doing
going to
right
affect
now.
the cafes like Starbucks and, those types of establishments?
It might. I mean, it might open the door to, wouldn't you like to see whatever materials they put your stuff in some kind of, compostable or environmentally sound containers such that it does break down in the environment? We're way behind. There is this stuff in Europe. Where you're going to find more of this stuff? In emerging economies, as they call it, third world. You'll find more plastic and stuff because it's just cheaper. But at some point, and I've made this point before, historically, I've made this point for years, I get it. It's not the cheapest solution to live sustainably, but it's the only solution to sustain the civilization. I mean, you just, you can't always go for the cheapest. It has to be cost effective, don't get me wrong. But I think it doesn't have to be the cheapest. We're ready to pay a premium for things that, like recyclability. We're also needing to build a recycling program, a recycling strategy. We don't have that either.
Here in America, and not rely on shipping things overseas to be recycled. You know what I did yesterday? Or the day before, I bought a Mylar balloon, 2 of them. And I thought, they're foil balloons, right? I'll be able to recycle them. And my husband said, you can't recycle those. There's layers of Mylar plastic and foil, and they can't be stripped, and it never biodegrades.
That's right. It's one of the worst things, actually.
I had no idea. I'm sick about it. I'm like, now what am I going to do with this thing? I can't recycle it. I don't want to throw it on a landfill. I'm feeling all upset about it.
Wow.
And I'll never buy one again. I had no idea.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what kind of apology what do you think, Albert?
I'm really sorry that I bought that. Trust me, no one feels worse than I do.
Well,
honestly.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
I think you should apologize for what you've done.
Yeah, we're running out. This is the second one.
I didn't realize what a
how many apologies can I issue
today? Yeah.
Again.
I didn't realize what a blight on the culture Kim is.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Albert, this is just despicable.
I stand corrected.
No, I don't know if that's going to do it.
We need people to just bring those Stanley Cups to all these establishments.
Yeah,
Just
you
fill my
with the Stanley Cup, you'd think you're on top of it.
You take your Stanley Cup to McDonald's, to Burger King, all those other
Shadow
places.
producer Calvin Wan asking, paper balloons? Maybe. Maybe.
Isn't glitter really bad for the environment too? That's also
all that stuff is the same. Mylar, says B.A. Ware, also known as biaxially oriented polyethylene terephthalate.
Ooh, that's like a whole bunch of ding words.
Yeah, I kind of lost it. I didn't stick the landing on that. Is a polyester film made from stretched polyethylene terephthalate.
I didn't know. I thought it was just foil. It's not, clearly. Wow. Uneducated, ignorant. Now I'm not.
That's
now
not
I
fake.
get it.
That's real.
Exactly.
Now I understand.
You
just don't get it.
Yeah,
do
Kim, you don't.
You don't.
You don't. You do not get it, Kim. It's an embarrassment, to be perfectly honest.
Oh.
And I am, I'm ashamed. I really am.
Big shout out if
all right,
if Be Aware spelt all that off the top of his head, all those chemical terms. That's very impressive.
Yeah, I have to say he is super impressive, that B.A. Ware.
He totally Googled it.
Well, he even Googling it and then somehow typing it in, or maybe he cut and pasted it.
That's a cut, copy, paste. Yeah, that's what that is.
Well,
there's a registered. Yeah, there's a registered thing.
I still give him some credit.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah, would you like to answer that question, Kim, now, maybe, rather than waiting until next hour?
Nor have I ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party.
No? All right.
But if I were, I would ask them to please stop making Mylar balloons.
Okay. All right.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
All right, well, we'll have a recess. Here's what we're going to do. I gave you a little bit, but I wanted some, I have a little bit more law and disorder. Do you want to do the stories from the sky after Kim's news? Albert, is that what you'd like to do?
After Kim's news, stories from the sky, and then we'll see whatever stories we could fit in there. We have a pack. We have a lot of stuff to get to.
Yeah, we do.
Albert, thank you.
I do have to tell you, Albert, that I do have an email asking for you
I've received a lot of positive
specifically
letters.
to comment on the Niners and the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I was
from the
actively trying to
commissioner's
avoid
office.
that, actually.
I know. Can you do it, though? We'll do it after Kim's news.
I will do it, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Smash the like button like a boss.
Smash
It
it with your
does
iron
help us
rod.
in the algorithms of YouTube. Please, your comments, your likes, those all matter.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Thank you for sharing the show. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the conversation. Kim's News and Stories from the Sky. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by Tuda Vineyards in Livermore. Woohoo! Yay! Big court cases going on today. Among them, this one, sex and cash, the big topics in the hearing to determine whether DA Fani Willis will be tossed from Donald Trump's Georgia election case. A Trump co-defendant says Willis benefited financially by hiring Nathan Wade because Wade took her on lavish vacations after he was appointed case prosecutor. Wade insists Willis paid her fair share with cash, but he admits he didn't have deposit slips to account for the thousands of dollars spent on those vacations.
This is a big story. It's being covered as a big story. It's certainly a big story out of Georgia related to the Georgia election trial of Trump and cronies. We'll talk to David Katz about it at the beginning of the next hour.
Let us move on then to two of the suspects in the Kansas City Chiefs victory parade shooting being juveniles. Here's a picture of the chaos yesterday. Police Chief Stacey Graves saying in a news conference, half of the 22 wounded are under the age of 16, the youngest being only 8 years old. The one fatality, a popular 44-year-old local disc jockey on a Spanish language station there in Kansas City. She was also a mother of two. Another House committee chair will not be seeking re-election. This is Mr. Green of Tennessee, and he is checking out. He is House Homeland Security Committee Chair Mark Green of Tennessee, announcing that he is retiring from Congress. He believed Washington is broken, is what he says. He is the fifth House Committee Chair to announce that he will not seek re-election at the end of their current term. So... sayonara, Mr. Green.
Well, he's right. It's broken, but I mean, he's not a good guy either. I mean, it's like, here comes the new boss, same as the old boss, as far as the GOP is concerned.
A Montana Air Force base is on lockdown in response to an active shooter alert. Malmstrom Air Force Base in Great Falls sent out the alert, went into lockdown just before 10:30 local time. Police say the investigation is ongoing. They have not released any more information. This base is 100 miles northwest of Helena, Montana. Again, this is the Malmstrom Air Force Base in Great Falls that is on lockdown in response to an active shooter alert. A Justice Department report says a combination of recurring policy violations and operational failures by the Federal Bureau of Prisons are to blame for the high numbers of suicides in prisons. The report says 187 of 344 inmate deaths from 2014 to 2021 were by suicide, and the report noted some facilities did not run mock suicide drills that they are required to run at least 3 times a year. So that is not happening, and it's a big problem and a sad situation. A white woman who was accused of misidentifying as a black woman a decade ago has now lost her teaching job in Arizona. Rachel Dolezal, she was known before legally changing her name, was let go from her job at a Tucson area elementary school after the school district discovered she was posting adult content to her OnlyFans account. The now 46-year-old made headlines back in 2015 for pretending to be black while acting as a civil rights leader and African studies professor in Washington State, where she headed up the local chapter of the NAACP. Oh, she's
wow, there's a lot going on there. That's wild.
There's a lot going on there. Yeah, now she just lost her teaching job in the elementary school as well.
More and more of these teachers are getting into that OnlyFans business, by the way.
Hey, you know what happens when you don't pay teachers enough? OnlyFans.
That's right. They need a side hustle.
They do. And that's a good one. And, you know, who doesn't want to stick their feet in some pudding and make an extra 10 grand?
What?
The House Intelligence Committee is warning about a serious national security threat. Multiple reports say the threat is related to emerging Russian space technology. Ohio Republican Mike Turner says his committee made the information on the threat available to members of Congress. Then the House Speaker said, this is not a big thing. One wonders if this is not some type of PR stunt by Mike Turner, because now you have Republicans contradicting each other, stepping on each other, trying to say this is a national security threat. No, this is not a national security threat. They won't even say what the threat is.
It was a total political move. The guy got caught making this ridiculous, impulsive statement. You know, these are the kinds of committees where there's confidential information being shared. He shouldn't have been sharing it publicly.
No.
He did. And then, of course, the media jumps on it. It's a clickbaity kind of thing that he's talking about. You know, it involves nukes. It involves a superpower. And then
and space.
And space. And then you realize, well, this is a nascent program. They haven't even really developed this. You know, the details that are coming out certainly would reflect a situation that didn't justify him coming with some public statement. It really was a classic look at me kind of situation.
Yeah. Russian president, speaking of Russia, Vladimir Putin says he did not enjoy his recent interview with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson. He thought it was going to be fun. It wasn't so fun.
Wow.
Putin spoke to a reporter at the Kremlin yesterday. He was asked about last week's interview with the right-wing commentator. According to a Reuters translation, President Putin said he was expecting Carlson to behave aggressively and ask sharp questions. But surprisingly, for a Western journalist, said Putin, Carlson was patiently listening to his long history dialogues. He wanted to come out swinging with answers, and he wasn't asked the hard questions.
He was unhappy that he wasn't cut off enough?
I guess not.
I mean, that's great.
Can you let him finish, sir?
Yeah.
I mean, if he wants the real interview, why doesn't he have Christiane Amanpour come out?
That's right.
You invite Tucker Carlson and expect that it's going to be a hard-hitting interview.
That's exactly right. Yeah, he's not a journalist. Come on.
Jennifer Lopez will visit more than 30 cities as part of a This Is Me Now tour this summer. The singer-actress kicking off the tour in support of her latest album, June 26th in Orlando.
That was going to be the name of my tour. This is Me Now. Damn.
She'll hit cities like Dallas, Phoenix, Los Angeles, Boston, New York City. The tour wraps up in Houston on August 31st. It might be the next hot ticket. Paramount Studios is jamming. Its new Bob Marley biopic set a record for the biggest midweek Valentine's Day opening. Bob Marley, One Love, brought in $14 million on Wednesday alone. It is projected to earn $30 million in its first 6 days through the President's Day holiday. That's Bob Marley's One Love.
Supposed to be a terrific movie. We'll ask the Culture Blaster about it tomorrow.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, this report is sponsored by Tuda Vineyards in Livermore. You saw the pictures of people happy, tasting wine, making friends for life. That's what it's about at Tuda Vineyards in Livermore. Great place to visit. You can walk around the property, see all the acres of vineyards, and just have a really, really lovely time. Friends for life. Give them 30 minutes. You'll be friends for life. They do the custom wine labels there. So if you're doing a celebration, maybe a birthday party or baby shower or wedding, you can get Tuda Vineyards wine and they will put a custom label on it. So that's really fun. And they also do big events out at the winery as well. Yeah, you can have small parties, large parties, that type of thing. But it's also great for just an afternoon of wine tasting. Tuda Vineyards in Livermore. Make sure whether it's in person or by phone or online that you get your Mark Thompson Show 10% discount. You simply have to say, smash it with your iron rod.
Yes, that's all you have to say.
And if you say that, you get 10% off. Boom, done. 925-699-4570.
Iron rod.
Right
925-699-4576 is the number. And this is Tuda Vineyards. Look how pretty it is out there. Wow.
It is beautiful. Livermore Valley. Yeah.
I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
Feels great, baby.
I was fortunate. Everyone I worked with made me better at my job.
You, sir, are a liar. Calling me a liar? Is that what you're calling me?
You are a cover-up artist and you are a liar.
No context will suffice to explain the hurt and anguish caused by my words.
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
God bless America.
Oh, my God.
No.
You can buy a Movado watch in Sam's.
What can you tell us about the scene?
From 2024!
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
We've never seen anything like it before.
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
There's never been anything like this.
It was great. I loved it.
Why are you yelling?
Hey, Mark, it's George Santos here. A lot of people are telling me you're a liar.
There's always been, in this country, 30 to 35% idiots.
Right on. Great to have everybody with us on a Thursday. David Katz is minutes away. He is our resident former federal prosecutor. Albert, did you get the shot of David Katz on, was it Fox or one of the, you got it, right?
Yeah, he was one of two experts they had on, and I was eagerly waiting for his, because you sent it to me. I was waiting for his appearance. Yeah, he's there. I'll have it written.
We'll share a little bit. Albert, I hate to do it. I hate to put off the stories in the sky, which we will get to in just a moment. But I did get an email in asking me to ask you as the commissioner of sports on this show, major Niners fan, to comment on the Super Bowl, which looked so good for us for a while and then took on a kind of dark tone at the end. Thoughts, please?
You kind of felt it. We were all ignoring it, even leading up to it. I wasn't confident with our defense, and it kind of like emerged there. But then even during the game, we lost Dre Greenlaw when he just ran out on the field. We lost an offensive lineman. We were playing well, but it just wasn't enough, which was Very disappointing, especially as we got to overtime. And I thought we should have went for that touchdown in overtime.
On fourth and 4?
Yeah, because you still had to get a stop after. And I'd rather just play to try to win the game, which is, I think, a little different than what Kyle Shanahan was thinking. But that being said, I just rewind back to that missed extra point, and that's like the missing detail of this whole game, and that changed. That changed everything. That changed. It gave Kansas City the comfort to just we could settle for a field goal and tie the game, because the made extra point would have gave us a 4-point lead, which would have meant that a touchdown was necessary, which I'm sure everyone's been talking about. But I haven't been listening, so I've been cold turkey with all sports. Minus
it's
hockey.
Hard. It's hard when we. I have to say this, because you kind of mentioned the defense. The defense is actually playing very well through much of the game. Now, once you get into overtime, I think your defense is gassed. You also, as you suggested, lose a key defensive player to a freak accident.
And they were targeting the replacement too the whole time, and even the broadcasts were talking about it.
I am super bummed. You saw, by the way, just after, and then we'll move on, but apropos of the comments about the defense and the Niners, that they just got rid of their defensive coordinator today.
Yeah, yesterday they fired him, and the defense did play well, and I thought they played well enough to win the Super Bowl, which was he probably would still have a job. Maybe he would still have a job if we won the Super Bowl. But I also thought after the second half started, great halftime show, by the way, from Usher. I thought the offense came out super flat when we didn't need to be flat. We needed to keep the pedal going, and we got the interception on Mahomes, and I felt like that was the key to win the turnover battle. We were winning the turnover battle, so that made me feel good. And
I mean, that Pacheco fumbled was huge. That you pushed that, that we got that Pacheco fumble deep in Niners territory. It was really quite the. It was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was deep in Niners territory.
It felt like things were going our way.
Yeah.
Very.
Get over, and then so we're getting Niners only gave up 19 points in 5 quarters. You saw that from Randy, so he's not like that. The defense played well. The offense that failed. I mean, I don't know. It's tough. Kansas City's got a stout defense too, and then you get this from again Doug. Doug's here to slap us around always, no matter what we're talking about. And Doug says, get over the loss and stop making excuses. Don't go on 4th and 4. That's a ridiculous notion. So Coach Doug and Coach Albert disagree.
I mean, going for it on 4th and 4, but knowing that Mahomes still going to get the ball, at least you're going for a touchdown there. And you're so close to the end. 4th and 4 in the middle of the field, not smart. 4th and 4 at the opposite end of the field, close to scoring a touchdown is a whole different story. So
yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, Coach Doug. The fact is, even if you don't get it, they're deep in their own territory.
And you still have to stop Mahomes. Like are you going to try to win the game, or are you going to try to not let Mahomes beat you? So
yeah,
he has been the only catalyst that we've been worried about the whole time, because we have better players. We have better players on offense and defense, but they have probably the best quarterback, arguably, ever. He just doesn't have the accolades to back that up yet.
And you make in all of what you just said, you make one statement that was key, which is there was a sense of playing not to lose instead of playing to win. There really was that. In fact, we had Rich Walkoff on Monday, and he was talking about that from a defensive perspective, that Mahomes and Chiefs went right down the field with a softer defensive secondary setup, and you just can't do that. You still have to play something of a press defense, even though they were so worried about getting burned over the top. I think Coach Albert makes a much more compelling argument than Coach Doug does in this instance. I'm on Coach Albert. So thank you. I applaud the way you've taken us through this season, and now I would say on to the Warriors, but not so much.
I was watching the game last night. They played the Clippers. They lost. It was in the middle of the 4th quarter, and they had like an 8 to 9 point lead. I was like, this feels like a very losable, typical Warriors game, and they did lose. So
yeah,
it's not surprising. So
maybe
we'll be more disappointed with the lack of offseason moves from my Giants, and be disappointed.
The Giants got a slugger. The Giants picked up. You're not excited.
I don't know if it's actually for sure yet because they announced it 2 days ago. Suzanne Slusser, who was with the SF Chronicles, she's really great. She announced it, and I'm waiting for the Giants to actually make it for real. So.
All right.
I'm not going to get ahead of myself like I did with Carlos Correa last year, if you remember.
Oh, yeah, that was
a ton of money, and that didn't happen. So.
Yeah, we practically had a parade for that before it even happened. So, all right. Thank you, Commish.
The Mark Thompson Show.
As you know, we were born out of a radio station in the Bay Area called KGO. So when the Niners made it to the Super Bowl, we were very excited, and we talk about the Niners a lot and about Bay Area stuff here because we feel very close to the San Francisco Bay Area. So you'll hear a lot about stuff that's going on there. But this is a good place to come if you're curious about crime and public urination and public defecation and crazy stuff going on. We've got the real firsthand line on much of it. But the Niners are the real thing, and we were saddened by the loss. Now, Albert, do we have time before David Katz arrives for some stories from the sky?
Yeah, so sorry, Kim. We're going to have to skip the news. I know David Katz tends to run late, so we'll just do stories from the sky and see what we can get through.
All right, so let's do it. This is Stories from the Sky.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in!
A Delta flight from Amsterdam to Detroit forced to turn back after maggots fell from the overhead cabin onto passengers below.
What?
Yes. Why were there maggots on a Delta flight from Amsterdam to Detroit? Because one of the people on board had boarded with rotting fish alongside their other carry-on luggage.
What?
Yes.
So gross.
The staff identified the owner of the offending suitcase and detained them on the plane after the rest of the travelers left the aircraft. According to Delta Air policy, carrying food as a carry-on is not considered dangerous and is allowed on board if packaged properly. Clearly, this was not packaged properly. What?
How did that thing get through security? I mean, wasn't it horribly smelly? You would imagine if there's rotting fish to the points that there's maggots in the fish and they're exploding out of the suitcase and dropping down on passengers, how they got that thing through security, I don't understand.
Well, it is odd. I mean, I don't know what I do think happened is they're looking for weapons, not looking for rotting fish.
Oh, maybe that's true.
I blame you.
Okay, well, I mean, maybe it's...
I blame you.
All right, I get it. Flight attendants and passengers stepping in to break up a mid-flight fight.
This is crazy.
This is on a plane that took off from Oakland. Southwest Airlines saying that 2 customers became disruptive on board a flight from Oakland to Kauai. How could anybody be in a bad mood when you're on your way to Hawaii?
This is the beginning of the vacation. Come on, people.
It's unclear how the disagreement started, but look at them. And that poor flight attendant trying to stand between them. My gosh. I mean, it's not...
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
Yeah, Joe Box and Little Anthony getting into it right there on the flight.
There's punches thrown there.
Pretty brutal. Mm-hmm. What happened at the end of that? The plane's crew, other passengers got in between the two. The plane did not make an emergency landing. I mean, it's hard to make an emergency landing when you're flying from Oakland to, where are you going to make your emergency landing? Well, that's not the worst of it, Kim. A man dies mid-flight after breaking out in cold sweat and losing liters of blood.
What?
63 years old. He died on a Lufthansa flight. Witnesses say the outlet, witnesses told media that the man had blood gushing from his nose and mouth.
Oh,
wow.
God. What is that?
What?
Ebola?
Yeah.
What kind of infectious disease is that? Let me off that plane, too.
That
please.
is not a good thing.
That's not fake. That's real.
Oh, boy, you hope it is fake, but if it's real, not much you can do. He lost liters of blood.
Oh, no.
It terrified passengers around him. The unidentified man boarded a Lufthansa flight from Bangkok, Thailand, to Munich, Germany with his wife And witnesses say that they sat in a row diagonally behind a group of other people, and I guess he had cold sweats. He was breathing much too quickly, according to the people who were seated there, sort of diagonally close enough to monitor what was going on. His breathing and appearance looked off, but they ascribed it to him being late for the flight and just wanting to catch the flight. You know, that's why he was breathing heavily, and that's why he was a little sort of ashen. They called for a doctor over the loudspeaker, and a 30-year-old man from Portland tried to respond. They gave him a little chamomile tea. Look, I'm no doctor.
That's an odd choice.
But when you're saying
it's a cure for everything.
When you're telling
Would you
me
like
that
some tea, sir?
he's bleeding from his nose and mouth,
I see you're bleeding from the eye sockets, but would you like some chamomile?
He is.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
I don't think it is a wild idea. I don't think it is going to be effective. Sadly, he passed away. The flight is delayed in, it's a British Airways flight headed from Milan to London. There were cushions, they say, that were too thick. Yeah, the plane was, sir, this is why this segment is so wild. The stuff that's going on.
I'm sorry, your flight is not supposed to be this comfortable.
The plane was delayed because some of the seat cushions were too thick. Yeah. It was an Italian aviation official who found that this nearly 5-year-old plane had the wrong size of seat cushion on board. The thicker cushions were in seats in the exit rows and are supposed to be thinner, you see, to allow passengers more access in the event of an emergency evacuation.
Sure.
Took them more than an hour to correct the thickness of those seat cushions. American Airlines hard landing on Maui was so hard, it sent 6 people to the hospital.
What?
Wow.
Flight 271 arriving around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And the Airbus 320 with 167 passengers on board, 7 crew, touched down with such intensity that 6 people were sent to the hospital.
Dang, if I'm one of the 167, I would have also felt not good after that.
Yeah, it can be pretty rough. As it is, those landings can be tough. A small plane made an emergency landing on a Virginia highway. This just happened days ago. Its crew and passengers weren't injured. This is it's a small plane, but it's a commercial plane. Southern Airways express flight took off from Dallas International Airport right before making a hard landing on the Loudoun County Parkway. All 7 people on board, the pilot, co-pilot, 4 adults, and a 15-year-old boy walked away from the flight uninjured. The pilot was able to safely land the plane in the roadway without striking any vehicles. I mean, I would say that's a high degree of difficulty move. But what are you going to do? You got to put the thing down somewhere.
We once set the KGO jet copter down on the side of Highway 37 because I couldn't figure out how to work the seatbelt in the back seat. Who's the bonehead in the back who can't put her seatbelt on?
Wow.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gambia's soccer team was flying to the Africa Cup when a serious incident on board the plane forced them back with 9 minutes from takeoff. They were just 9 minutes into the flight. They experienced a sudden lack of anyone? If you guessed oxygen, give yourself points.
Oh.
Yeah.
What happened?
I think that's important. Yeah.
I think that's a key element for the flight.
Several players passed out.
Jeez.
The flight had just left the airport in Gambia's capital, was forced to return to make an emergency landing as oxygen supplies on board were dangerously low. As soon as we entered the small plane that was hired to fly us, said one of the players, we noticed the immense heat that left us dripping in sweat. The quote goes on, the inhumane heat mixed with the occurring lack of oxygen left many people with strong headaches and extreme dizziness.
Ugh.
Furthermore, people started falling deeply asleep minutes after entering the aircraft.
That's not good.
Yeah. The 28-year-old player said that he was grateful for averting a potential tragedy, but slammed his country for what he called an unacceptable situation. He says that essentially the country has a responsibility to put them on flights that are handled by competent staff. The chartered flight carrying the Scorpions to the African Cup, this is from the Gambian Football Federation, has returned due to technical problems. The flight was 9 minutes airborne when the crew realized and immediately requested to return. They're investigating the cause of the lack of oxygen in the cabin. And, yeah.
I also have a bonus story. I'm not sure if you covered it. Did you cover the Florida crash from a couple of days ago? I think it was trending on social media, but I have it here. It's just insane
let's see
footage.
it.
Yeah, no, it's very crazy.
So this is a plane that flies right over the freeway. Wow. Oh, my God.
Oh, Lord.
This is crazy.
It
You've
just
got to, if you're
smashed
just
right out of the
listening to the
shoulder.
show, you've got to check out
Astonishing new dash cam
the
video has
video
emerged
on
showing that
YouTube.
deadly
Yeah, let's
plane
lose
crash
the
Friday
audio,
on the
though.
Florida
Yeah.
highway. So the plane, it comes out of the left upper corner of the screen. It flies over several lanes of traffic, and it tries to make an emergency landing in the far right lane, but it crashes into a vehicle, killing 2 of the 5 people on board. Officials say the pilot had radioed that he'd lost both engines and was trying to make it to the nearest airport. The NTSB is leading the crash investigation.
Wow. That is brutal. Losing both engines? God, what the hell is going on? Where's that drop?
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Thank you, Ron. That story's from the sky for today.
This has been Stories from the Sky. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to move about the cabin.
Smash the like button like a boss,
Smash
if you
it
would.
with your iron rod.
Give us a thumbs up. Smash it with your iron rod.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Croquet Film says the $5 super chat. Better here than Philadelphia, says WC Fields.
Big
Right,
shout
that's
out.
right. Isn't that right? I'd rather be here than Philadelphia. Wes Thierry with a 5 spot.
shout
Thank you
out.
for the super sticker, Wes. What up, Wes? Thank you, Croquet, Wes. And Trevor Starr in Hollywood with a 10 spot. Congratulations,
Big
Mark,
shout out.
in the super chat. And by the way, Trevor sent me, while in a moment, the great David Katz will join us, I think. And if not, I'll give you some details on what's happening in Georgia and beyond. But I did get a this might be from the Croquet Film guy. Just because he, I think, and then I had...
I've received a lot of positive letters.
I'm a new Patreon member. By the way, Patreon is one of the ways you can support the show. We're crowdfunded, so appreciate you joining our community of Patreon supporters. Patreon, PayPal. There are links to both at themarkthompsonshow.com. I'm a new Patreon member. I was struck by your conversation with Jefferson Graham yesterday about the trashing of the self-driving car in San Francisco. I recently read a book, Blood in the Machine by Brian Merchant, about the Luddite Rebellion in 19th century England that was very relevant to your discussion. To sum up Merchant's point in the simplest way, the Luddites were not simple-minded peasants who hated technology. They were craftsmen who were in a society that worked well for them until the weaving frames were imposed on them and destroyed their way of life. Much as these self-driving cars are in the process of doing that same thing, it's implied, right, to those in Lyft, Uber, cab drivers, etc. Merchant would be a great guest, he said, in my opinion. The show is great. I grew up in New York, the great radio days of Gene Shepard. My only complaint is that you never cover international croquet.
Oh.
Yeah. Albert, I blame you for that.
Yeah,
Albert,
I have to add that. Yeah.
if you could.
Total Albert's up his alley. Yeah.
That is from Mike. Thank you, Mike, for
Sorry,
that.
Mike. I'll get on it.
We'll be a little more croquet now in this show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Do you have the David Katz video from his appearance on, I don't know, was it on Fox or was it on, I believe it was on Fox 5 in New York? Or
Yeah,
one of those
Fox
stations.
5 New York.
Fox 5 New York. The last word in news. This is Fox 5 New York.
Against Trump is he did just the opposite. He took them without asking any permission. He took them himself. He knew exactly what he was doing. He chose them. He stored them. He didn't want to return them.
Well, that's the document case, and Katz is there saying, look, there's a difference between Biden and Trump in this. There's this bizarre equivalency, essentially, that's being established. But David's everywhere. He's on London radio. He's there on Fox 5 in New York. And he's here on Thursdays. How about it for David Katz, everybody?
Great to be with you.
David, all morning I was watching this Fonnie Willis thing on cable television, and they were going wall to wall with it. That's another issue because I think the media handles everything with there's no sense of proportion anymore. If something's got to be covered, particularly with cable news, they have 24 hours to fill. They're going to go wall to wall with a trial because and this is sexy, right? It involves sex, and it involves money, and it involves a relationship between this prosecutor, and it involves the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, and a critical case. Can you frame this in some way that's understandable and tell us what the likely outcome might be?
I think the likely outcome is that she will be disqualified from the case. I think that the special prosecutor, Wade, who was brought on and has now been paid over $700,000 of taxpayer funds, I think that he will be disqualified from the case. But I think that he'll find a way, because this is a court of equity and the judge is supposed to do the right thing, to keep her office in the case. Now, if someone has a motion why her office should be kept out of the case, I suppose that could be that by now she has so tainted or tarnished the case in some way during the time that she was, in charge of it, that could be a winning argument. But this idea that it's going to stop the prosecution altogether or he'll disqualify the whole office, it's just not clear. I think there'll be a secondary round, Mark, of how much she actually was involved and how much he, as the special prosecutor, put his hand on the scale of justice. But it may not be that much. I know he's been paid $700,000, but some of the tasks that he did can be done by somebody else, which is more efficient than getting a whole new office. And if he kicks out the whole office, I think that the judge has to realize, with all the political pressure in the state, with everything that's going on, this case may never get going. And that truly would be unfair. That would be justice so delayed that it would be denied. There's another case, and I've had my doubts about her and how she was handling the case from the beginning. And I think a lot of people were like, hey, what's the matter with this guy? I mean, she's going after Trump. Why is this guy criticizing someone who's going after Trump? But I didn't like the way she threatened everyone with jail. I didn't like the way that this DA Willis said that she was going to insist on RICO trials, which were going to mean 4 or 5 months sitting in a courtroom for the 1 week that was going to actually concern the particular defendant. How are they going to pay for it? How is this the rule of law? How is this fair, no matter how upset you were about what happened in Georgia as part of the whole January 6th debacle and worse by Trump and his minions, including down there in Georgia? I got all of that. But I've had my resume showing the penitentiary, wanting everybody to sign in at the jail and give a fingerprint so they could see just how awful this jail was that she was threatening them all with. She claimed it was a mandatory sentence. She claimed during her press conference that people were going to get 5 years. Imagine how intimidating that was when it turns out it's really not a mandatory sentence and you can get probation for it. And then everyone says that she and the prosecutor who's on the case right now, well, look what a great job they've done. How could anybody criticize them? They've gotten 4 guilty pleas. Let's remember the guilty pleas. I think just about everybody got a misdemeanor. Nobody went to jail. They looked a little bit like show guilty pleas as part of what looked a little bit like a show trial from the beginning. But I don't think it's fair, Mark, to kick the entire office out of the case. But I think that she's about to testify. I think she is right this minute testifying under oath. But I think that she and this special prosecutor are going to be kicked out. And as to the people who think that, this really helps Trump, her staying on the case with this special prosecutor and this drip of bad facts, that actually helps Trump, I think, more than just making a clean break, saying she's got to get off the case. She could have no control over anybody in the office. I mean, somebody else would have to determine their paychecks, their evaluations, what they did. She would be absolutely walled off for the case. And so whether it's fair or unfair, so would this special prosecutor be. It's just too bad, the optics.
Kim, did you have something, sir?
Yeah, I was you say it's bad, the optics. My question is about her professional reputation. I mean, this is her life. This is, she has to maintain this air of dignity about her. What does this do to her in her career and in any future cases?
Well, she's got 19 people that she charged with racketeering violations, and they're all presumed innocent. Under our system of justice, they are just as innocent and deserving of our concern as is this DA Willis. So I think you have to look at that. I mean, this has this whole, rich irony. What goes around comes around. She charges, Trump and all these others with being corrupt officials. Oh, isn't that terrible that now she's being accused of being a corrupt official? I mean, the best case for her, from what I've heard so far, is that she greatly admires this particular criminal defense attorney, although he's not really known in this field, and he's not really known for his great results or for his trying this type of case. But she thinks that he is absolutely the man for the job. Her best story is that she's not in love with him. She doesn't have an affair with him going on at that time. But after he's hired and paid this $250 an hour, that's when her love for him keeps growing and blossoming. And then he gets separated from his wife. And that's when they start this romantic involvement, which has them, while they're prosecuting Trump and knowing that the whole world's eyes are on them, going on junkets that he pays for to 3 or 4 romantic places. Her story is that she reimbursed him. So let's assume that she meticulously reimbursed him and that she did it fairly timely, because, I'm a criminal defense attorney now, and I've seen a lot of cases where things are backdated, where there's suddenly a reimbursement, and the reimbursement is 1 hour after they find out that the authorities are on to what was really going on, and then there's suddenly a reimbursement, there's suddenly a payment. But let's assume she doesn't have any of those kinds of problems. Meanwhile, he's made over $700,000, and they're going to say that, well, that doesn't affect him at all. That doesn't mean that he would end up with more defendants, because the more defendants, the more $250 an hour. He'll have all kinds of excuses that there's caps on it and this and that. But if you're the defendant, Roman, who's being prosecuted and who turned down a deal and has this apparently very good criminal defense attorney, you're going to push this. And let me say one last thing about the defense bar. She's doing exactly what she's supposed to do. And it seems like Roman actually found her. She's a former public defender down there. It seems like he actually kind of found her on her own, and she really did investigate and find some things out. Now, we may find that's nonsense with this criminal defense attorney, Mark. We may find out that this was all Trump's investigators, that this was all carefully planned. But I think as everything comes out, I think it's going to make Trump look bad. I think it's going to make a lot of other people look bad, but I think it's going to end up in her and the special prosecutor being disqualified. And let me say, I'm sticking my neck out, because that's not what most commentators think. And 20 experts on legal ethics and former prosecutors have said, there's no there. This is a big nothing burger. But I don't see it as a big nothing burger. The fact that 2 prosecutors can, of course, have a romantic relationship. Let's say they're prosecuting the case together against Mr. Smith. That's not this case. That's not this case. That this is just 2 DAs who happen to have a romantic relationship, and they're both prosecuting Mr. Smith and a few others. That's not where we are at all.
I mean, it is true that, well, this is so salacious, and, there's so much going on here. But it is true that, when prosecutors work in office, I remember during the OJ case, didn't Marcia Clark there was a rumored relationship with Christopher Darden, and, you're working closely together in the late night hours, and, one thing, But in this case, it suggested, no, she hired this guy because there was a romantic relationship, and that's why he got the bump with all this money. And then, you look at vacations and all this other stuff that they took together, and it's because the romance is accompanied by all this flow of money that this becomes even, I think, more intriguing and relevant.
Well, the flow of money is, I mean, from the Trump's point of view, and from this fellow Roman, who's actually the one bringing the motion.
Right.
From their point of view.
Sorry, go ahead.
From their point of
view,
view,
one of Trump's co-defendants, right, Roman?
He's one of Trump's co-defendants, one of the 19, one of the 15 who hasn't made any kind of deal in this case, and is presumably going to this incredibly long trial if it ever gets going. I think that's the main point that you're making right there, that it's a different situation. She's going to say that she put him in charge of a search committee, and that he went around and tried to find 3 other more experienced lawyers. They all turned the case down because they were scared of the fact that people get threatened and harassed and sent all kinds of hate mail when they take on Donald Trump. And that he said, I would be willing to take it. The other 3 people didn't want it. But no one's going to buy that she had to settle for him, that he was the only guy brave enough to take this case. There'll be other people. There'll be dozens who'll say, I would have loved to have taken this case. I don't like Trump. I'm an expert in this kind of case. There's a very complicated racketeering or RICO law down there. And she explained to the breathless press many times how complicated it was. And she had this expert on it and all this kind of stuff. Well, guess what? The guy that she hired and that now has been paid over $700,000 was not such an expert on it. I don't think he'd ever had one of these incredibly complex, hard to learn RICO cases. Now, the judges said that he's not going to get into his level of competence, which I believe. I mean, if you're a good lawyer and you want to do your homework and you want to get help, you can learn to do a RICO case. But it's just, there's so many things about this thing, Mark, that don't look good. And, one of the things that we've always wanted to see is to see this case go forward. And you have to say that Miss Willis has taken steps that impeded that effort, that it go forward. She's embroiled herself in this morass right now. And again, what does it say for her judgment? I mean, think about it. What does it say for her judgment? And, all these prosecutors, I've seen them around the country, they're saying right now that they don't have a sufficient factual record for what they're saying, that, it shouldn't have been, ballyhooed in the press. It should have been filed under seal. I want you to pick up your newspaper or look at news shows and see how many prosecutors around the country really have that respect for the idea of not dragging people and dragging salacious details through the press. Because a lot of them, including some of the federal prosecutors, are more than happy to drag them through there. They say the worst thing. There's people who say, how do I get my reputation back? And, in the United Kingdom, they don't allow this. They really don't allow you to be tried in the newspapers. We don't have that. The First Amendment's been interpreted that you can drag all these salacious details. So what are you relying on? You're relying on the good faith and the good judgment of prosecutors. A lot of times they don't exercise the mark. And if Fani Willis thinks that she and Mr. Wade are being dragged through the mud, people should go back and see how many people she dragged through the mud in her press release, including in this very case.
Yeah, this is a really great point you've made, and you've made it from the very beginning. You sort of suggested that she was super aggressive in her rhetoric, in her charging, and so you've been quite consistent in this regard, and now it's as though there's some poetic justice with it coming back on her. But I think the takeaway here, apart from that, is you're saying, hey, this will continue. This case will likely continue. It's too important probably to be completely derailed by this, but what will be derailed is Willis's and Wade's involvement in the case, and that's what I'm getting from you. And what will also be derailed is the calendar. This is going to take longer now to come to term, right?
I'm sticking my neck out here because, as I say, 20 experts issued this friend of the court brief and said there's no there. They have a rebuttal. It's kind of interesting. The expert on these things brought in a special prosecutor, didn't file this brief. I'm always looking for the irony and the hypocrisy. So he's gotten $700,000. He's absolutely the man for the job. But when it comes to actually defending this, they get these amici curiae from all of these fancy law schools. And it's really hard to understand the supposed unanimity in that friend of the court brief, Mark, except for the fact that, they're from the Ivy League. The Ivy League hates Trump. I mean, this does play into Trump's hands, right? Are they really looking at this objectively and saying, no, there's no basis to rule for the I'll say it for Roman. I mean, it is interesting that here is one defendant. He was offered a misdemeanor. He turned it down. He's apparently a Republican true believer. This is his, this is his moment in the sunshine to fight back against all of the system, the prosecutors, and he's found the right lawyer. She's going to be a star coming out of this defense attorney for this fellow Roman, former public defender, and she seems to be doing just a smash-up job. At least the story is that she thought to go through the divorce records. And in the divorce records that the wife has brought against this guy, Wade, she found a few little tidbits. And she's turned the tidbits now into these subpoenas. And she's found out about these trips. I still think it was one of Trump's investigators who followed these people and hounded them and found this stuff out. And then they just handed it off to somebody who has plausible deniability that it was Trump and his investigators. But at least the story that's been told so far is that here's a diligent, hardworking lawyer turning over, not just doing the obvious things in a case, but doing what criminal defense attorneys are supposed to do, come up with something. She went through the divorce filing. She came up with the subpoenas. And now, lo and behold, she can prove these trips. And apparently she has a couple of witnesses who say the romantic relationship started long before. If the judge believes that, then it's not that there was this lawyer that she really admired and she asked him to be the head of the search team, and then he broke up with his wife, and then one thing led to another. If that's true, she had a lover and she picked her lover and found a way for him to make over $700,000 so far, and then went on fancy trips that he paid for. And she says that she reimbursed him. If she didn't reimburse him just about dollar for dollar, she's in big trouble on that, because they're going to say this is just a type of self-dealing. And no, you can't have prosecutors self-dealing in their own case. That's, again, not just the boyfriend and girlfriend are both with the DA and they're prosecuting you, Mr. Jones.
Could she be disbarred for anything like that? Should there be evidence that there was no reimbursement?
This could be calamitous for her. One thing is that she's now, because the judge agreed to have an evidentiary hearing, now she's under oath. So if anything she says now is not true and can be shown to be perjury, she's in huge trouble with the bar just on that basis. But these things here, that's one of the things they're trying to claim about Ali Mayorkas. First, they ask Ali Mayorkas to turn over all these documents and to come testify, and then they scream at him, and then they say, oh, he didn't turn over all the documents, and we don't agree with his testimony. We think some of it was incorrect or worse than that. And you can play that game with people, but it's certainly not a good thing if you're the prosecutor on a case and now you're called to the stand under oath. I think that only happened to me once, and it was a very technical issue about the Speedy Trial Act or something like that. But my God, I mean, just from a personal point of view for Miss Willis, this is a disaster already and a potential calamity for her.
Well, this is for her personally, yeah, for her
career.
Personally / professionally, yeah. I mean, this is the crap that it yields, though, from like guys like Andrew. How many times did I tell you that all of that? The Trump trials are bogus. I mean, this doesn't speak to the veracity of the evidence against Trump. I mean, I think the Georgia case is pretty damning against Trump, but you end up with this sideshow that becomes, becomes the hook on which, oh, it's all crap. Trump's fine. None of these trials will amount to anything. You hang that statement on that hook. Well, you look at what's happening in Georgia. It's a total mess.
Well, that's what's so disappointing, Mark, if I can just say. That is what is so disappointing. Because, number one, if you bring that case, as Willis did, it's going to help you in the next election, which I think was, unfortunately, her calculation. But she seemed to never appreciate the fact that she had to be Caesar's wife. And she was the exact opposite of Caesar's wife. She walked right into this. The people who say that Colorado disqualified Trump, and they come right back and say, no, Trump disqualified Trump. Trump participated in the insurrection. Trump disqualified himself under the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. Well, didn't Miss Willis really disqualify herself? I mean, that they've gotten to the bottom of some of this stuff and they've gotten as far into what happened. How on earth could she have let this happen? And let me say one more thing, because I do believe that we have an existential crisis in this country to save democracy. And when I see people with all the power to affect it, like Miss Willis, did she treat this like there was an existential threat to our democracy? Did she show forbearance? Did she show any self-sacrifice? And so it's astonishing. And as a former federal prosecutor, I never would have gotten myself anywhere close to this situation, anybody with any sense, you have any former prosecutor up here who will say to you candidly what their opinion is, and a huge unforced error. This is like committing suicide on national TV. And what did she think was going to happen? Trump went after, and Trump may be a total bastard for doing this. Trump may be lowlife, pond scum, always trying to dig into the guy who's trying to put him away in prison, where in my opinion, he's belonged for quite a while. But that's how he rolls. He's going to investigate you. He investigated this New York Attorney General, Mark, and he had stuff on him. And that's exactly what he's going to do. And when the case started out, it appears that he had nothing on her. It appeared that she was a fine public servant. And then this self-inflicted wound that was going to come out, you just think, I mean, just on that level alone, and of course the voters can't recall her right now, but if there were a recall, I mean, does she have the judgment to handle a case that's this important? Has she shown the good judgment to handle a case like this? No, she hasn't. If there were recall petitions there, she'd have been, I think, recalled by now. I think people are just, and her biggest fans, I think, are the most dismayed.
Right. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, she's pretty much lost the room. It was very unprofessional, says Donald. It was in some ways similar to Trump's unprofessional. Well, Trump's not unprofessional. He's lawless. I mean, there's not. I would, to call him unprofessional is kind.
The nicest thing that's ever been said.
All right. Well, David, I love talking to you, and I know that we addressed last week the 14th Amendment case before the Supreme Court, and sort of the bizarre treatment that they have of that. There's the immunity case as well. You've already said you don't think that they're going to rule in Trump's favor on that question. And the last thing I'll just quickly ask you as we run out of time is about his case in New York. I mean, where he's going to receive a civil penalty. He'll receive it's a criminal penalty, right?
If any of you are going to be in London tomorrow morning, you can hear me pontificating on that case on Times of London Radio. Because they're very interested in it, because it really does look like that one's coming next. Now, it may be that it gets continued, Mark, but it looks like that one's coming next because even if the U.S. Supreme Court denies the delay, because Trump wants yet another delay, what he wants to do is not have the U.S. Supreme Court rule, because I think everyone knows, including his lawyers, that they're going to rule against him. They're not going to say there's presidential immunity. So on the substance, he's going to lose. He may even lose on the stay. So he's got a new idea, Mark, which is that they should delay the case in the U.S. Supreme Court to give him time to go to the full D.C. circuit. But the experts think that the way they wrote the opinion, and the reason it took a little bit longer than expected for that 3-judge panel in the D.C. circuit to rule, was that they circulated it informally to the other judges. And they asked them, look, are you going to vote for en banc? Because if you are, just let us know. And we think that they said no, because the mandate said unless the U.S. Supreme Court acts, it's going right back to the trial court. So I do think that there is a very plausible path to have this case start in the late spring in trial court. That is picking a jury in Washington, D.C., putting 12 in the box on the criminal case, the one that involves the insurrection, the not tamping it down, all the lead up to it, the slates and so forth, the Judge Chutkan trial. I think that one really could start in, let's say, April or May. But how about March? Right now, March is when the case with Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen is going to go forward. And, a lot of people say, my God, don't lead with your weakest case. But that may be, number one, what fate has in store for us. And if it is, it is. And the second thing is, even a weak criminal case is going to have highlights that really hurt Trump.
Well, that's the thing. I think that there's political fallout from everything you're talking about. I mean, substantial political fallout.
And the idea that, well, nobody should believe Stormy Daniels. Well, wait a second. This man decided to sleep with Stormy Daniels. This man decided to sleep with Stormy Daniels while he was married, okay? This man decided to pay her off, right? Michael Cohen says it very clearly. Remember, at some point, Michael Cohen says something, and you can hear on a tape, which was legally made, Trump says to Michael Cohen, pay her cash. No, in cash, okay? Mm-hmm. Why does someone want to have someone paid off in cash? It's Trump's voice. It's him saying it. And then you have to list it on your campaign financial returns. These are statements made under penalty of perjury. And Trump is good for it. Trump knows about it. if people think, oh, well, what's the big deal filing a form under penalty of perjury? Almost all the people who went to prison for cheating the IRS, it's because they signed under penalty of perjury a 1040 that was false. They signed all these federal financial forms that were false. And that is what Trump did. Now, he happens to be prosecuted in state court for it because it's also a violation of state law to do that. And if he's going to say, oh, I thought it was only a violation of federal law to tell a big lie. I didn't think it was a violation of state law to say the same big lie on my state form. I mean, at some point, all of his things are going to be ridiculous. Yes, Michael Cohen is a problematic witness, but, I was a federal prosecutor for years. You never trust a Michael Cohen. You corroborate everything he says. So right after Michael Cohen, who makes 12 great points, then you have the documents and you have the corroborating witnesses who make the same 12 points. And then you argue, if you want to prosecute someone like Trump, you don't call 12 bishops to the stand. You call the 12 people who hung out with Trump. And this is how Trump
people
rolled.
themselves, right?
He hung around with crooked lawyers. You think this is the most crooked lawyer in New York? This is the defendant who hung out with the crookedest lawyer in New York. You think that she's a sleazy porn star? He's the guy who decided to be intimate with her and then pay her off. So there's a way it's not going to be such a happy
I love it. That's the prosecutor and you coming out. David, thank you so much. We're out of time. We'll look forward to listening to your musings on London radio. We have a love for our the mother country on this show. Yes, that's wonderful. Oh, there you go. He is the wonderful David Katz, everybody. Thanks, David.
We got not only the rule of law, but the Beatles. The rule of law and the Beatles. That's not there.
The rule of law and the Beatles from the Brits. Yes. Great to see you, David. Thank you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Wow. That was a big chunk of the great David Katz. I hope you caught it. If you didn't, check it out. It'll be dropped as a separate video a little bit later today, and you can share it. He breaks down that Georgia case beautifully, and in fact, suggests that it was a little bit of genius to do what they're doing to the prosecutor's office in Georgia, and it was a little bit of idiocy for the Georgia's prosecutor office to be involved in the way they are, not only in the romantic sense, that was clearly stupid. I mean, that's the Caesar's wife part of it. But the whole idea that you'd come out so heavy at the beginning, that was interesting that David pointed to that her initial press conference where she's talking about RICO and she's talking about the jail and the conditions, that she came on so heavy. And in a way, there's sort of this bizarre, karmic, poetic justice to what's happened. But she's clearly stepped in it, and there is big trouble in Georgia. So, quick shot. Yeah.
She needed to be beyond reproach, and she just isn't.
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm. Reproach is a ding word. And Lucy McAllister, thank you for a couple of bucks today.
Big shout out.
Yeah, big shout out. Super chats and super stickers are...
No relation, but thanks, Lucy.
Yeah, another McAllister making good today in our show. Devil went down to Georgia, says Julie. Yeah, how about that? So, with your blessing, Kim, I'm going to get right to It's the Planet Stupid. Are you good with that?
Yeah, I do. I just want to tell you one thing before we move on, and
Please.
That is that earlier I reported a lockdown situation at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, and I would like to tell you that it is no longer on lockdown after this active shooter alert. No shots fired, nobody hurt, all clear. We move on.
No? Were there shots fired or not? You're saying no?
No shots fired, no injuries.
No. So false alarm.
Or they caught somebody in a hurry before shots were fired. I don't know.
Oh, I see.
Kim, how are you?
Well,
Not sure how it played out, but we know that there's no longer an active shooter alert and everything's okay.
All right. Thank you for that. This is It's the Planet Stupid.
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet.
Earth. A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet stupid. No. It's the planet stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet Stupid, Belinda Waymouth. Hello, Belinda. Nice to see you.
Morning. Or afternoon, actually. Good afternoon.
Yeah, just a bit into the afternoon, isn't it?
It is.
Boy, it's we always greet you with a sense of anticipation and always a little bit of dread if there's something bad that's happening, and there's a lot of both in this these days in the planet. I mean, encouraging and discouraging at the same time. What do you have today?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. Well, let's start with the good news, shall we? We'll
Perfect.
just jump right in. Let's talk about the famed sea cows, the manatees of Florida. So their numbers have been plummeting for years. They've been doing horribly. We're always hearing about how they're dying off. And last year was the lowest mortality rate in the manatee population since 2017.
Wow, that's terrific. So these conservation measures are working.
Yes, they are. Yep, there he is. He's up there announcing. So here's the gorgeous manatee and sea cow. So they eat seagrass and then other aquatic plants. And it's all about making an effort. So yes, they earmarked $50 million for manatee conservation. And very importantly, they put $1.8 billion towards cleaning up the waterways, because obviously, you need clean water. And those efforts have meant there's been this turnaround, this positive turnaround in manatee numbers, and not this, terrible die-off that we were hearing about, or that the die-off is reducing.
And reversed, yeah.
Yeah. So it's great.
That's terrific. I mean, and I am encouraged by that, and we should all be encouraged by that for the reasons you've suggested. So it means, look, you lean in with money, you lean in with effort, you lean in with goals to clean up this waterway, and they've done it with all those things.
And here's the thing, biodiversity is super important because it's the interwoven tapestry of all the species out there, all the other species that, create life on Earth as we know it and maintain it. Every species has a job that it does. And so, us putting money into conserving another species is us helping ourselves. And we really should, we obviously want to be altruistic, but, we help ourselves when we help the other species that we share this planet with.
That's so well said. So well said. So that's the good news.
Yeah. And I've got some more. So
great.
Yeah. So we're going to stay down south. We're in Alabama now. So in Alabama, there's been this incredible purchase of 8,000 acres. Now, I call it mobile, not mobile, but it's the mobile tensor delta. And it's an incredibly, incredibly important delta. It is known as the Amazon of North America. It is hugely rich in species. Its biggest advocate to date was E.O. Wilson, the late E.O. Wilson, the amazing biologist. He was a professor at Harvard. He was a two-time Pulitzer Prize winner. He really, really talked about this delta and this area because this is where he grew up and spent a lot of time, and just how unbelievably important it is. And yes, it's this land between two rivers. You can see it there. It's home to amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, all these different plants. And it was, and I have to give the Chouinard family a shout out. Patagonia, in 2022 said, okay, 98% of our profits are going to go towards saving biodiversity and fighting climate change. This is their biggest gift so far. Since September 2022, they've given $71 million towards environmental causes and for politicians who support climate change mitigation acts. Yes, look how gorgeous it is. I mean, there's one funny thing that I read quoting about this saying, this shouldn't really be called, the Amazon of North America. The Amazon should be called the mobile tensor delta, of South America.
South America.
Yeah. So it's this incredibly rich area, and so it was the Chouinard family put up the 5.2 million.
Wow, it's that Patagonia money.
Yeah,
that is
it's a billionaire who is saving life on Earth here on Earth. And I am using that as a little bit of a dig to the billionaires who say they're going to outer space.
Sure,
to
they're
save
trying
life
to.
on Earth.
So we can make Mars inhabitable or whatever their plan is.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
this is a rich family who are really, walking the talk, and it's amazing. It's amazing what they're doing and what they're enabling to happen. So they put in the money. The Nature Conservancy put in some money. There was another $10 million that came. Or it's a loan actually from an anonymous donor, and the Nature Conservancy have this very I think amazing. Their goal is to create a wildlife corridor that goes all the way from the Gulf of Mexico through Alabama. This parcel would be part of it, and up to the Appalachian Mountains. And that would really do an incredible amount to save biodiversity.
Wow.
We talked about it before, they need to be connected. We need these wildlife areas, animals, species, but to be able to get
these migratory species have to be able to do that. It's really interesting too, and I don't know, I always wish that we didn't need some philanthropic billionaire to show up and open the purse strings, but boy, when one does, it really can make a difference. This is the power of private money. When you can't get the public money for any number of reasons, I'm guessing there's really a lack of public money. It's terrific to see the fruits of this private money this way.
Yeah. No, it's so important. And I think because we don't have a high enough tax bracket for the rich, that it has to come from, philanthropic donations.
No, if we could jack a little bit out of the mega rich, we would be able to pay for any number of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's terrific. Beautiful pictures and a beautiful story. And thank you for some good news.
Yes. Should we go to the bad news now?
That's pretty much what I was setting up. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. It's a segue I don't want to make, but all right. So a couple of things. We're reaching this really intense moment where they're talking about tipping points, and are we going to go over the tipping points? And we're really seeing the calamitous results of this overheating planet. And one of the things that came out last year was this report talking about the excess number of deaths that we have because of climate change related storms. These storms coming off the Atlantic, they're way more the fatalities that they cause are way more intense. We started with Katrina. Not started with Katrina, but Katrina obviously was a big one. That was almost 1,500 people. So what they're saying is that in a 31-year period from 1988 to 2019, there were 20,000 excess deaths that happened because of these horrible, heat induced and enhanced tropical storms. And 20,000 is probably quite conservative because they only looked at the actual event itself and then 1 month after that, the excess deaths. And the fact is, the communities that are hurt are lower socioeconomic, communities of color. They don't have the access to healthcare, even to emergency services that more, advantaged areas do. Their health comes already aren't good. They're in the path, of where these storms are coming in. And, you get the injuries that happen, the fatalities that happen on the day. There are parasitic diseases that happen when you're in flood waters that, can go on affecting you for the, not just 1 month of your life. What they found was that with these storms, only 6% of the deaths happened in advantaged areas, just to give you an idea. So communities that were richer did so much better. And the other thing that's really, that we need to take notice of, and why these things that we talk about every week on the show are so important, Mark, and obviously they are to me, but, they should be to everybody, is because 90% of these deaths have happened since 2005. The planet is getting hotter, the storms are getting worse, the fires, the floods, all of those things. And I'm going to get on a little bit of a political soapbox here because, we have 15% of Americans. And I should point out, because this other story was about Alabama, the majority of these deaths are happening in Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, and Texas.
Wow.
And we have 15% of Americans who deny climate change, and they live in this, the center of America and in the South. And they're not helping themselves by denying that this is actually happening. And as we've talked about before, this really goes along political lines. A lot of Republicans say, no, it's not happening. And a lot of the majority of Democrats say that it is. But this is why I'm going to say that voting for Donald Trump, who is a big climate denying influencer, huge, the stuff that he got on and, went onto Twitter and said after those huge snowstorms and power outages in 2017 in Texas, they got this incredible engagement on Twitter when he, was on Twitter, now, the other name that it has. But he's this, sort of...
He's a real influencer, is your point. People follow his social media posts.
Yeah, he has this outsized influence. And so when he calls climate change, a hoax out of China, or that the IPCC report on climate is bogus and we shouldn't listen to it, or what's happening in Texas, and all those people who were freezing, they were dying of hypothermia, that wasn't climate change. That is dangerous. And that is not a person who should be in the White House, especially now when all these things are happening. There's the story that you shot to me this week about the Atlantic Ocean currents and how they're reaching a tipping point. And, it's not just what's happening in the North Atlantic that ocean current might, shut down. And if it does, Europe will get colder. Asia and Africa won't get as much rain, so that it'll be harder to grow crops. The southern hemisphere will get hotter. And let me just describe a tipping point. I'm going to use this analogy. It's not my analogy, but just to sort of explain it. And also, once there's so much heat in the system that you can't stop the inevitable happening. So I'm not on a four-legged chair, but if you're on a four-legged chair and you tipped back so you were on two legs, you could go back to a certain, degree and you're still going to be okay. But you reach a tipping point where you can't stop yourself anymore and gravity is just going to pull you down, and your next state is you're going to be lying on the floor. That's what a tipping point is. You're okay, and suddenly you're not, and you're over the edge. And this is the thing about what's happening in the Atlantic and what's happening, say, with these boreal forest fires, is that the more heat that we put into the system, that we put into the ocean, you get to a point eventually where you can't stop us racing towards that tipping point. And so we need someone in the White House, arguably, the most influential position in the world, who really believes in climate change and that needs to be mitigated. And on that note, I would say that we have a president right now who does really get it, and who is, who has done more to mitigate climate change than any other president before him, but he's really bad on the messaging. And what Biden does, and this is crazy because, they say 18% of Biden voters, climate change is their number one issue. It's what they're really, really concerned about. But he's riding this fine line because, people also don't want their gas and their heating bills to go up. They want prices at the pump to be affordable. And so, we've become the biggest, oil, natural gas, producing, exporting nation, right, all the while, while he's pushing, solar and heat pumps and
he's trying to have it a little bit both ways for political reasons, I think.
Yeah, and we can see why that's necessary. But the other thing that he does is when he gets out there in the world, and when he talks about his achievements with the climate, I mean, number one, the IRA, calling it the Inflation Reduction Act, it's a terrible name because people don't get that $370 billion of that is, helping the planet. But he talks, he has this message that, when he sees climate change, he sees job opportunities. Well, that doesn't resonate with everyone. And what all the research is showing is that when you really put it in terms of what do you love? Do you love your children? Do you love your grandchildren? Do you want a habitable planet for them. And if he really could message in a way that really sort of got to people's heartstrings, it would be more effective. And he just needs to do it because, if not now, when? I mean, this is the moment.
Sadly, he's not good at messaging in general. I always felt as if Trump, who I think you correctly identify as a massive influencer, so many people just will, I mean, it's cultish. They will literally accept whatever he says. He could have gotten anything done. He could have gotten that infrastructure package done that he talked about, but instead they went for tax cuts. But in this case, if he in any way embraced climate change or an aggressive climate policy, he doesn't have to mention climate. You could just mention, I'm going to put in a lot of green jobs. We're going to be the best green jobs country in the world. You're going to have, we hear about China doing green jobs. You hear about Germany doing green jobs. America's going to put them all to shame. There'll never anything like it. He could have done it. We would have been speaking green, man, because he can get that crew that follows him to do anything. Biden, sadly, has to curry favor with a little bit of that crew that's on the fence, that still wants to, America to be an independent. We want energy independence. And he can't really bang the drum too hard, I don't think, of alternative energy, because then he's viewed as too greeny. He still wants to, again, curry favor with that older crew that they view natural gas as cleaner than, we talked about this, liquid natural gas and that whole production here in this country as cleaner than coal, or they talk about clean coal, whatever it may be. They talk about oil reserves, all of which is to say that Biden is trying to split the baby a little bit, and it's really hard to message when you're trying to split the baby.
Yeah, I think that's true. But remember when Trump was talking about infrastructure and he wanted to, build bridges and things, it was his own party who said, no, that's a non-starter. It was Republicans who said, we're not going to do that. And I think to me, the biggest thing is, I think you're right. Like he can get a lot of people to follow him, but I don't know how effective he's so not in touch with reality and the facts. They're so not important to him, and he so lives in an alternate universe where it's more important that he's popular and has all these followers. But
more than anything, I guess all I'm trying to say is it's a shame. I mean, it's really nothing more than amusing but it's a shame, meaning amusing. I am musing when I'm talking about this. It's not amusing.
It's not amusing.
It's far from amusing, opposite. But it is. But I am musing when I talk about the fact that, boy, if only Trump would bang that drum, everybody would dance to that drum beat, because he's just such a powerful figure. And Biden, for all of his abilities to get things done, just doesn't have the same powerful messaging microphone, sadly.
No, he doesn't have the charisma, and it's really hurting, his re-election bid and all the things that he has accomplished and what he's done, for American workers with, unions. I mean, that one is big, aside from, what he's doing for the planet. But I just, it's just such an important issue, and I just can't. It's
an existential issue. We literally won't be here. I mean, it's just it's crazy. Yeah. But it's also slow moving. Belinda, I think you've made this point before that we're really not good with sort of slow moving problems. The creeping nature of this.
Nature of climate change. Yes, no, that does not work in our favor. But I think it's so. When those pictures we were talking about last week of the Los Angeles River, the churning brown water that, media around the world were picking it up going, oh my God, look, LA's about to be underwater. I think we need to be, the media needs to really help get the message out there about, number one, how important what is going on, as far as, climate change and the planet and all these tipping points that we could be reaching. I mean, it's just buried in the news feeds when you see that stuff, but also how important it is to have someone in the White House who really gets it and is going to be super, super proactive, because this is the moment. This is the moment. This year's election is so important.
And the White House is only one arm of it too. But
Yeah.
We have to wrap up. You'll appreciate this from Jason, who says, Belinda was already approved, but anyone with guitars in the background is okay in my book.
What about Iggy?
And there's Iggy. Yeah, how about Iggy? Come on, between Iggy and the guitars. Nicely done. You can find Belinda across social media, Belinda Waymouth, at Belinda, Waymouth. Thank you, Belinda. Love your visits with us. Appreciate all the information, and we'll see you next week. All right, Belinda Waymouth, everybody. That's It's the Planet Stupid for today.
More
It's the Planet Stupid.
No, it's the planet, stupid.
next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, what do we need to do? I am completely with you, my friend.
Oh, we have some shout outs here.
Oh yeah, we'll do it again. How about the birthday wishes for Miz Organic? We started the show with some strong birthday
shout
wishes.
out.
Big shout out for her. 50 years old. Hits us with a 10 spot. Thank you.
Nice.
Spencer
Big
Jaffe
shout
with a $5 super sticker. Thank you for that. Super stickers, super chats help sustain us along with the Patreon and PayPal. Thank you guys for the ways you support us. We're crowdfunded. That's literally why we're here, because you guys contribute enough through all these different revenue streams to keep us on the air. The Lady Beatrice, we need mental health checks. It's not enough for someone to have a clear record. Yeah, we read that before. The super chat. Thank you. Yeah. There was something else I wanted to... I know there were a couple of ding words along the way here. Sometimes I don't... I want you to know I usually catch them, but sometimes I don't, so I appreciate you guys helping. And during Katz, I didn't want to interrupt him. Somebody suggested... M. Oak suggested that philanthropic was a ding word. True. I thought calamitous that he used was the ding word that jumped out at me, if you want to know. But there you go. For I miss pontificate as a ding word by Katz, says Phineas. So thank you very much. Morass was a word I missed. I did not catch that. I'll be honest. Tom, thank you. Tom is the keeper of the ding. So interesting stuff. I think it's interesting. I like to follow that stuff. You know, I'm all about the ding words, Kim. You can have your little,
The Mark Thompson Show.
I am all about the ding, the power of the ding. How about Steven? Did you see this? Steven Greenelk? Greenelk, yeah. Steven Greenelk. Steven G, as I call him. He's Stevie G, baby. Come on, Stevie G. Thank you for the 10 spot. How about a big shout out?
Big shout out.
And a thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Love our visits today with Katz, with Belinda. Really good stuff. The After Party Live is going down with Kim and with John Daly over on the After Party Live station. They have their own channel. So check that out. Tomorrow, Alex Michelson fills in for Michael Shore on politics. Florida with John Daly, who'll come through, and the Culture Blaster, Michael Snyder. It's our Big Friday show. Be here. Don't miss it
I'm
live.
Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson
It's
Show.
going to be special.
Bye-bye.
Special.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
No more Mylar balloons, Kim.
No.
Till tomorrow. Bye-bye.